The Fantastic Four: First Steps is set to premiere at the box office on July 24th. This movie begins a new phase in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and is highly anticipated among fans, considering this is our first time seeing the Fantastic Four in the canon Marvel Universe. Also, there has been not one, not two, but 3 failed attempts at a Fantastic Four film.
Say that again?
Ironically, all set almost a decade apart. This film will take part in setting the tone for what Avengers Doomsday and the overall future of the MCU will feel like. And if it's not good, the future of Marvel isn't promising. But there's about an 80% chance that this movie will be good. The pre-sale tickets sold out so fast that multiple ticket websites crashed, and the film could potentially earn $125 to $155 million in its opening weekend. But 2 weeks before the release of The First Steps on July 11, DC Studios' Superman will hit theaters. Just like the Fantastic Four, there's a lot riding on this film, debatably even more. And the reason for that is the DCU hasn't had as smooth of a ride as Marvel has. Although Phase 5 of Marvel has been bad, DC fans fight for their lives every time the studio decides to release a new film.
Max Lord, you're putting yourself and everyone else in grave danger. I need you to give me the stone. What happened to it?
Because it's been a rough couple of years for DC movies, leading their die-hard fans to be frustrated, confused, or just disinterested. But it might be different with the release of Superman, not only because the universe has a new director to point it in the right direction, but because from what we've seen, it feels fresh. The saturated color palette, the insane camera work, and the overall DCU reboot. On top of the movie actually looks good, and audiences are actually anticipating its release. Point in case, the film is pacing to potentially earn between $154 to $175 million in its opening weekend. And if it successfully does so, it could surpass the Fantastic Four's opening numbers. That being said, these movies are high in competition, both being superhero films, both releasing in the month of July, only 2 weeks apart. And of course, the DC versus Marvel conversation. If it was still 2016 when Captain America: Civil War and the Suicide Squad first released, of course we know who wins this debate, considering Civil War is seen as one of the best superhero films ever, and Suicide Squad is one of the worst received superhero projects of all time. But now, the narrative has changed. Marvel isn't the unstoppable franchise it once was, and DC is looking to redefine itself with a fresh start. Fantastic Four: First Steps and Superman aren't just films. The Fantastic Four will aim to prove that Marvel still has a future, while Superman will attempt to erase years of DC's inconsistency and make the universe just as, if not more relevant than Marvel in their prime. So which universe will come out on top by the end of the summer? Matt Shakman's vision for the Fantastic Four very vividly leans into the 1960s inspired world, giving the film a retro sci-fi tone, surprisingly different from the past Fantastic Four films. He described the film as a mix of Marvel and Apollo 11, almost like this movie will be a time capsule of what the future looked like from a 1960s perspective, meaning aside from the film being set in another universe, overall its world will feel distinct from the rest of the MCU. And unlike the previous Fantastic Four films, the new one skips the traditional origin movie setup, and instead will likely focus on the team's established dynamic post-cosmic accident, which will likely give fans a familiar but new, different take on the Fantastic Four. James Gunn's Superman will not be connected to the previous DCU and will be the first movie of the new universe, giving the studio room to redefine the character in live action the right way. And now their audience has the opportunity to actually enjoy a DC film. James Gunn is reintroducing Superman. His vision leans into mythic storytelling with modern sensibilities, offering a more vibrant view on Superman. He's also stated that he's pulling inspiration from the movie Godzilla -1, blending strong story building with heartfelt storytelling. Based on this alone, the reboot might give audiences something they haven't felt from DC in years. In a Superman story that balances something different, considering it is live action while still keeping the character's authenticity.
Superman.
Miss Lane.
Based on early reviews and fan reception prior to the release of Superman and the Fantastic Four.
We will protect you.
There is a shift in power being set in place between Marvel and DC, one of the most fascinating dynamics in modern superhero cinema for over a decade. Marvel has dominated the superhero, action, and sci-fi genre, with films like Iron Man, Captain America: Civil War, and Avengers Endgame. But the recent inconsistency in Marvel's quality storytelling and overall filmmaking gives DC an opportunity to redefine itself. As I just mentioned, Marvel once had a grip on the superhero genre and have changed the course of the film industry, with their first 4 phases at least. But Phase 5 has weakened Marvel's reputation and audience reception. Films like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and The Marvels struggled critically and commercially, both earning under $500 million worldwide, a noticeable decrease from Marvel's previous box office giants. These underperformances not only raise questions about Marvel's quality, but has also spread exhaustion throughout Marvel's fanbase, particularly from fans who watch Marvel come so far then fall so hard. So beyond financial performance, many fans have expressed frustration over Marvel's reliance on the multiverse saga, overwhelming storytelling, and the lack of a clear centered figure, like Iron Man or Captain America. Without a strong unifying narrative, the MCU's direction feels uncertain, making Fantastic Four: First Steps a crucial test for whether Marvel can regain its main focus or if its golden era is truly behind us. In some ways, DC is about to undergo the same thing. Unlike Marvel, DC hasn't had just one bad phase. Their entire universe has been complicated and confusing. The previous DC cinematic universe was built on inconsistency, rushed storytelling, and studio interference. Films like Suicide Squad and The Flash failed to establish an actual vision. This confusion wasn't just about bad movies, it was about a lack of direction. Multiple characters were introduced without proper build-up, like Cyborg or Flash. Aside from this, several timelines contradicted each other, like Batman being treated like an urban legend in Batman v Superman, or the confusing story of Wonder Woman's invisibility powers. But to briefly move on, heroes like Batman and Superman were reimagined without consistency across films. DC tried to fast-track their own Avengers moment with the Justice League before audiences had time to connect with the characters, resulting in the movie making back $661.3 million in its worldwide box office run, compared to the 2012 Avengers film, which is one of the highest-grossing box office films of all time. Other than this film bombing at the box office, cancelled projects like Batgirl, or at least one more solo Superman movie, led to audience frustration. DC's fans felt like the studio was assuming they knew better than the target audience, rather than actually listening to them, so it became nearly impossible for fans to stay invested. The result of this was a cinematic universe that felt more like a rework of reboots than a solid story.
We all know the story. 4 brave astronauts head up into space. Please welcome the Fantastic Four.
Why any of this is important for either franchises is because these aren't just 2 superhero movies releasing in July. Both studios are doing it with some of their most iconic characters. So this isn't just about box office numbers, it's about which studio can win back the superhero culture conversation. And that's what makes this rivalry feel more alive than it has in years. Fantastic Four: First Steps could be Marvel's way of saying they still set the standard after a horrible Phase 5. This film isn't just a reboot like it is for DC, it's a continuation, possible redemption of identity. By skipping the origin story and placing the team in a retro-futuristic 1960s inspired universe, Marvel is signaling a creative reset of reinventing a film that could help re-establish Marvel's cinematic dominance. That's if it's better than Superman. On the other hand, Superman is a possible way of DC stating that they finally have a plan. Rather than trying to do what Marvel is doing, after years of chaos, James Gunn's Superman is the first true cornerstone of the new DCU. It's not just about rebooting Clark Kent, it's about redefining what DC movies are about. James Gunn's approach, the film's tone, color palette, and character-first storytelling are all meant to distance DC from the past misfires and prove that this time the studio is building something with purpose. For over a decade, superhero films were untouchable, but now audiences are more selective. The days of automatic billion-dollar openings are gone. Even well-reviewed films like Thunderbolts have underperformed at the box office, despite strong word of mouth. The genre isn't dead, but it's in a way evolving, but one of the biggest challenges is oversaturation with dozens of interconnected films and streaming shows. Viewers are overwhelmed. The thrill of shared universes has worn off, and casual fans are tuning out. People want stories that stand on their own, not homework assignments disguised as entertainment. There's a growing appetite for fresh visual styles like Superman's saturated comic-like tone, standalones, and bigger stories with emotional depth, or something as small as creative risk that can break the Marvel or DC formula. That's why Fantastic Four and Superman are so important. They're not just reboots, they're genre experiments. One leans into retro sci-fi optimism, the other leans into a grounded myth and emotional realism. If they succeed, this could hopefully redefine what superhero films look like in the next decade. If both films hit, studios may finally shift back from quantity and into quality. But if they flop, it could accelerate the genre's decline, or at least force a major reset for the genre. Marvel's reboot is riding a wave of cautious optimism. After a long line of underwhelming releases, this film is being positioned as a creative reset. And the early signs are promising. Like the record-breaking ticket sales, it became the top first-day pre-seller of 2025, even beating Superman. On top of this, fan anticipation is high. The retro-futuristic aesthetic, the 1960s setting, and the introduction of Galactus and the Silver Surfer has fans excited. But the pressure is still high. Marvel needs to land this, not just financially, but emotionally, to prove they still know how to tell stories that matter.
I don't know.
James Gunn's Superman is more than a reboot, it's the foundation of the new DCU. And it's already proving that point. It broke the 2025 ticket sales record, surpassing the Fantastic Four in early pre-sales through Amazon Prime access. But aside from sales, it's drawn praise for its emotionally toned visuals, and a Superman who feels both powerful and deeply human. The stakes are arguably higher for DC. If Superman fails, it jeopardizes the entire DCU roadmap. But if it delivers, it could finally give DC the narrative and clarity it's lacked for over a decade. In talks of who's more likely to deliver, Marvel has the brand recognition, a visual bold new direction, and a cast that's already winning fans over. But DC has the momentum, a completed film with a strong early hype, and a director with a clear character-driven vision. If we're talking execution, Superman might have the one-up. It's finished, focused, and already outpacing expectations. But if the Fantastic Four lands emotionally and creatively, it could be the comeback Marvel desperately needs. If you made it this far in the video, you either agree with what I'm saying or you're preparing to write a hate comment. Either way, go ahead, like and subscribe so I can keep pointing out Marvel's mistakes and so you can keep commenting about how much you disagree. Until then, have a wonderful day.